Hey everybody, welcome back to another design tutorial in Adobe Xd. Today we'll be creating a cool flow, calendar and reminder flow in Adobe Xd, and this is really cool. I can change between month and week view as well, and I can check out what is there, and all these animations are done inside Adobe Xd. You don't have to go out. So without further ado, let's design this user interface and let's design this prototype really quick. First of all, let's get started by creating an artboard, and we'll be using an iPhone 10 and 10s artboard, right? And just for convenience, we will change the name to home, right? And this is where you will land. Now first, let's place all the necessary components, which I've saved again in the XD file, again linking that down in the description. Now the tab bar is actually the iOS tab bar. We won't be using this. In fact, we will be using this tab bar that I have created. This is a material design tab bar. Most of the components are material design, and these are material icons. Again, material icons, there is their own website, which I will be linking down in the description. Here, now that I've placed everything, let me just quickly describe how I've done this. All these are 24 by 24 in size, and they are in fact 48 by 48 pixels apart from each other, and that is how I've done it. And as you can see, they are evenly placed and centered as well. Now that the main component is out of the way, let's make all the variable components that we need. So for this, what I'm going to do is create a circle which should be about 91 by 91. I've done all the mathematics for you guys. And before we even place anything, if in Adobe Xd you select the artboard, and from the left edge of the artboard you can drag, and as you can see, this little grid line has started to appear. We'll place one 16 pixels from the left, and the other we will place 8 pixels from the 16 pixel grid line as well. And we'll do the same for the right hand side so that everything is evenly placed. I'll do 116 here as well, and I will do 8 pixels from the right here. Perfect. Now that we have the grid ready to go, let's place these on the grid here, and this should be a purple gradient, which I've already set up, and I will just drag these color gradient lines slightly away from the corners or the edges, so as to say, of the circle. They're not really edges technically, but just slightly away from these, so that I have a little more subtle gradient here. So now what I'm going to do is use the text tool to place a number. Here I'm going to do a 1. Perfect. And what I'm going to do is make this Gotham font. We'll be using 2 fonts. It's ideal to be using 1 or 2 fonts all throughout the application, and not more than that. That's a quick UI tip. And I want to change this 14 to 16. Perfect. And the Gotham should be black. Should be 16, and rather than saying black, we'll say bold. Perfect. And what I'm going to do is just going to group this, and I am going to make this a component. The entire group should become a component. And the good thing about components is if I change something in the parent component, all the other elements will also change. So I'm going to quickly create a repeat grid. If I click on the repeat grid here on the right, and I just drag these handles here, it'll automatically size it up and place our repeat grid perfectly. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is give it make sure that they touch each of these grid lines that we've placed, or these guiding lines that we've placed, and also have the same distance, which is 27 apparently, based on the measurements. And that's all we needed to do. Now what I'm going to do is ungroup this grid. Perfect. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, just select the circle, not the number, just the circle, and give this low purple which I've set up. See how all the elements have changed just because I've changed it in the parent. Perfect. And if I change the child element here to 2, as you can see, it's not changed in the parent element. That's cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 3 and just say up to 7, and I'll skip to that part really quick. Okay, so 7 is there, and I'll just remove these ones just because this has to be a week view, just for the week. And by the way, happy Independence Day to all my fellow Indians, and it's a great day to celebrate, so go out and celebrate. It's we're gonna celebrate our freedom today. So now that we have everything placed here, I will change some of these elements. So 4 till 7 will have this bold gradient that I've created. So 4, and I'm going to, as you can see, I'm just selecting the circle inside the component. So just the ellipse, and I'm changing it to this purple gradient. And this is because I want to differentiate these from all the other calendar entries. So you know, these have some meetings or some reminders set. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to give each of these shadows, and the shadow will be 12 by 24. So 12 on the y-axis and 24 on the blur. And the shadow has to be the same color as the purple. So this highest purple, I've named it, and it should be 50% in opacity. I'm going to do the exact same for all of these, and I'll quickly skip to that part. Now that it's been set up, all the shadows have been assigned. Again, this is a new trend to give the same color shadow as the element itself. So if it was pink, the shadow would have been pink. Now I'm going to add a quick neat touch to this, and what I'm going to do is drag in some icons. So here I want to just go to my downloads folder, and I've saved, so round airplane. I'll just import this into XD by dragging it, and I'll just make this white. Now all these are from the material design icons library, which is material.io, and I'll give this link in the description as well. And to find rounded icons, there is a link here. If I click on this and I search for anything here, as you can see, all these icons have been slightly rounded. And if I change it to fill, as you can see, some of these have changed. See how this changes? Yeah, you can even choose two-tone and sharp. That's pretty cool, man. And even outline is there. So go ahead and check this out. Now, if I come back to the project and I I will put it inside this component. And here, what I'm going to do is, so what I'll do with this plane is I'll make sure that it's 4 pixels from this, and I'll rotate it 45 degrees to the right. So there's as you can see, there's a rotation panel here. You can put in any number and it'll rotate it that much. And I will place these elements in the center. So if I just drag it out here, Adobe will just indicate when we've reached the center, just like this. Make sure it's centered both ways. Perfect. Now that we have the airplane icon, so it shows that, okay, this day I have to fly somewhere, or I'm traveling somewhere. That's a cool little addition that I thought of. Now I'll go back, and here I have to find round person. Now if I go here, as you can see, there is a round people, and I'll just drag the round person here. And now I want the round people. So round people, again from the material library, I'll just drag it into XD, and I'll make this white. I'm not going to change the dimensions here as such, and we'll just make sure that this is a part of this group. So just double click and then copy it here, and make sure this is 4 pixels from 5, and just drag it to the center just like we did for the previous component, and just center everything out. Now I'll just quickly, now that we've placed this, we're not going to fiddle with these too much right now, just for the tutorial. And the next step will be to make sure that I can switch between weeks. So if this is the first week, I can switch to the next week now. So for that, we will place arrows. And again, going back to the icon library here, I will copy over, I'll just search for arrow, so that I don't have to you know. So again, I'll just copy the arrow here. Perfect. And as you can see, this is the rounded arrow from material design once again. And I would place this on the left hand side here, just making sure that it's aligned to this guided line right here. And the next thing I'm going to do is give it a slight background, because you want to showcase that this is an actionable button. And again, not giving it too much importance, I'll just gray it out. And for this, I will just make sure that it's wide enough, not too wide. And I'll say basic gray. Again, I'll reduce the basic gray to 50%, just the background. And that's pretty much okay. Now this has to be high gray as well. So we're following that whole gray pattern, which I've saved here. And I'll make sure that this is slightly bigger as well. Perfect. And I'll place the arrow in the center, and about this should be wide enough so that the arrow is 8 pixels from here. So just 1 pixel less. Now, as you can see, the width and height is defined here. What I have to do, this is a quick little trick. I'll say -1 and it'll reduce it. And now the arrow is 8 pixels from the edge of this element. Now, how do I check how far it is away from it? All I need to do is either hold Alt on Windows or Option on Mac, and you can see the distance between this element and all the other elements as well. So you can just measure anything you want just by placing the arrow next to it. Now what I'm going to do is just make these two edges, the corner two edges, rounded. How do I do that? If I go to the right panel here, and if I see corner radius here, I'll just click on this different radius for each corner button. And the second one will be our second corner here, so 12. And you know what, I'll give it a 50. That's a little too much, but you'll see what I'm going to do. And the next one also, I'll make 50. And see how it's perfectly rounded now on just these two edges. And all the other edges, I'll leave to 0. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is just group both of these together and make this a component. So if I make changes here, it'll make changes everywhere else as well. And I will rotate this just like this. Perfect. As you can see, and make sure that the alignment is proper. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is, now what I will do is create the expanded view for just this portion. Now the next step here will be to add icons for different views. So this is the week view, but I want the month view and the agenda view as well. For that we'll just place 3 icons here in the middle. What I'll do is just quickly go to the downloads folder, and I'll remove this search result so that I have all the download elements right here. And here what I'm going to place is, I want the round ones specifically, but I will for Mac it's easy to just say date added, and it'll show me based on date added. So I want to say, I've just dragged the icon from the downloads folder, and I'll make this the high gray as well. And below this I'll say week, which indicates that this is the week view. And I'll change it from Gotham to Cerebri Sans, or all our secondary text will be written in Cerebri Sans, or you can choose any other free font like Roboto if you want. And I'll place this week and make sure that this is 12 points for the text. And I'll place it 4 pixels below this and make sure both of these are centered all right. And the Cerebri Sans should be regular, not bold. Perfect. And just center this out a little bit based on this icon, and 4 pixels away from it. Perfect. And I'll group both of these together, and I'll just copy it over towards the center. Now we have the other view that we can edit. Now what I'm going to do is go to the downloads folder back, and I'll choose the other view, which is the month view. Perfect. And I'll just place it here and cut it, and go inside this group, just delete this icon and place it inside. I'll just replace that icon. Make sure that is 4 pixels from the text here, and also placed in the center. Perfect. And make this high gray as well, but we want this to be about 40 pixels, 40% in opacity. Even the font, just reduce the opacity just like this. And make sure again that it's centered and centered based on this, and about 28 pixels, about 24 pixels from this. Perfect. Now I will make another one for the agenda view. Just copy it just like this and make sure this is the same distance, 24 pixels. And I'll go back to my trusty download folder right now. Now we really don't have anything for the agenda view, any icon right now, but you can set it all on your own. You are responsible and you're an owner of your own design. That's something that I like about UX as well. And I'll make this a group in the entire thing and make sure that this is centered based on this artboard. Perfect. It is in fact centered. Now what I'm going to do is place an image at the top just to showcase where we are located. So I am located in India, so I will place an image from India, and I want the background to be gray. Since we're using so much gray, I found this cool little picture from Unsplash. Unsplash is again free of cost, and no, it's not sponsoring this channel, so again you can trust me on that. Make sure that this image is small enough and place it in the center just like that. Perfect. And put it at the back. Now as you can see, we can't really put the entire image here, so what I'm going to do is create another rectangle over here and place it just below all the elements and just above the image. Perfect. And I'll remove the border from it, and if I go to the color and change it to linear gradient, and both the sides, both the gradient edges have to be white, but the top edge, if I select here, and I want this to be 0% in opacity, and I will if I click anywhere on this line, I can add a quick point where I can change the color, but I'm going to change the opacity on this point to make sure that this is completely opaque, and just spread this out a little bit just so that it gives that feel. Perfect. And you can change this image out a little bit. One thing that I'm going to do here is, this image is very big. Unsplash has like very high quality images, so to make sure that this image is really lightweight and it doesn't put too much pressure on XD, there is a plugin called Image Minify. It's free of cost. You can just go to the plugin manager and download it. And if I select any image just like I've done here and say minify selected images, it'll just minify it. That means it'll reduce the size of it. And as you can, for evidence, if you see the name here, at the end of the name there will be something called image minify. So it's done its work. It's just reduced the quality of the image. Perfect. Now the next thing that I want to do is make sure that this gradient goes up a little bit just like this, and I want to place today's date here. Otherwise, how do I know what date it is today? I want this to be 3rd of August 2019. Perfect. And I want this 3, if I just double click on it and just select the number 3, I want this to be 32 pixels in size and the font to be Gotham. Yep, you can do that in XD. And the August, I want this to be Cerebri Sans, which it is already. And I want this to be 50% in opacity. So if I select just August 2019, and if I go to the fill right here, go to 50%, you can reduce the opacity just like that. I want this to be just around the edge right here, and about, say, 32 pixels. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave it here just like that, and I want this to be also showcase all our tasks today. So there's no tasks for today because it's the 3rd, as you can see. I say no tasks for today. Perfect. And I want this to be 8 pixels from this. Perfect. Group this and make sure there's 32 pixels from these circles. As you can see, I'm measuring it right here by holding Option or Alt, and it's 32 pixels. Perfect. So we have the main view right here. The next thing that I want to do is create the expanded view for each of these items. So I'll duplicate this board just so that we can prototype it. And I'll double click on this circle. And what I'm going to do is just expand this circle, just make it super duper big while holding Shift so that you still maintain the shape of that circle. And once this is done, perfect. What I'm going to do is make sure that this circle is on top of everything else. Just hold Command or Control and click on the curly brackets, right? It'll bring it up above everything else, just like that, right here. And I also want all of this original element to be on the top as well. So perfect. Now what I'm going to do is select this aeroplane and make both of these vanish, the aeroplane. So I'll say Command or Control comma to hide it, and same goes with the number 4, hide it. Perfect. And I'll bring in the same text which is here, and just make sure that you change the name of this group. So I'll change the name to group 18. Perfect. And here I will make this first of all white. That is what you want first. And also make sure all of this is 100% opacity right here. Perfect. And rather than saying 3rd, I want this to say 4th because we're making it for the 4th of August. So 4th, remove 3rd. Perfect. And I'll remove the no tasks for today as well and bring this up just about here. So about, let's measure it out. We want this to be about 72 pixels from the top so that there's enough space for all the other elements as well. And just click here and just drag it down a little bit more. Perfect. So 3, yeah, perfect. And also I want an arrow which will guide me back to this. Again, I've downloaded it already for you guys. So again, this text has to be about 32 pixels from this. So that's about 32, perfect. And the next step here would be to create the card. And if I click here and I'll just drag it out here, I want the card to be about 350 pixels tall and wide enough to fill these grid lines here. And I want this to be about 24 pixels from this text, and that is about perfect. As you can see, 24 pixels, perfect. And I want this to be 12 pixels on the border radius as well. Perfect. Remove the border. There we go, the card. And now we can quickly just edit this. All we need to do is bring in the image for Singapore, since we are traveling to Singapore apparently, and just drag it inside this component, and Adobe Xd will just do the needful and fit it perfectly inside this element. Now the next step is to create a quick gradient which will cover up the top of this area. And I'll just bring it up and make sure that the border radius is 12. Remove the borders and change this fill from solid to linear gradient. Now I want both of these edges to be the same color. And if I go to the color palette right here, I want both of these to be dark gray, which is this high gray which I've named, and both of these to be high gray, just like that. And reduce the top color to 0% gradient. Perfect. Nothing else has to be done here. Now here, what I'm going to do is place another text, but I will place the plane first. So just copy this plane over and make sure that the name of this plane is different. So from path 44, I'll change it to path 45. Perfect. And just rotate this plane so that it's now not pointing towards now it'll point towards the text. And I want this to be 16 pixels from this edge. Just shift it and you can see I want this to be 14. Perfect. And again, Cerebri Sans, and I want to say flying to Singapore. Perfect. Now this is the name of the task, as you can see. I want this to be 14. Perfect. And again, Cerebri Sans medium. And make sure this is 8 pixels from the plane. How do I do that? I'll just measure it like this with the trick that I told you guys. Mic just broke, so the quality of the audio won't be good, but I'm trying my best. So just 8 pixels away from here, and just group these two together so that you know they're both in one line. And in the next line, I want to say what time I'm leaving. So I'm just going to say 7 a.m. for the time being. Perfect. And I will increase the size of this. Just make sure it's 32 pixels. Perfect. And make sure this is about 16 pixels from this flying to Singapore. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is below this say from where I have to leave. So in this case, since I'm in Delhi, I'll say Indira Gandhi International Airport. That's it. And make sure that the size of this is 14. Perfect. I'll place it about 8 pixels from the top, or just line it like this. About 8 pixels, about 4 pixels from the top right here. Perfect. And reduce it from medium to regular. And just make sure that both of these are slightly away from the edge like this. And I'll soon tell you how to place it again. So I'll say leave by 6:30 a.m. and I'll change this to 50% opacity and 12 pixels in font size, and see how I have basically made sure that these font sizes are more or less evenly distributed. Everything is either 32, 14, 12, and in some cases 16. And also everywhere the padding or the margins are 16 pixels, which indicates that I'm moving with an 8 pixel grid. So multiples of 8 have to be followed. 8, 16, 24, 32, just like that. And when you're designing, all of that is very important, especially if you're designing maybe a minimal UI. That is very important. So make sure you have all your measurements jot down nicely. I had to reduce the amount, the size of this video, and as well as the time of this video, so the entirety of the process hasn't been described. But I will in the future be doing that video. I also have a new channel where I'll be posting every single day design podcasts, design cool design snippets. It will be on the screen somewhere here. It's called I Can Design, and I will be supporting all of you guys from there. We'll be in touch. We'll have a great community. I post every Monday and Thursday. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.